Hello, folks. I hope you're all having a fantastic Thursday. It's a very rainy Thursday here. Man, we are working on. I'm going to point the right way. We're working on that guy right there. A sculpt for my next project, which you can find out more about at prayershandbook.com. It is the Vicious Grognard, and we sculpted some books. There's a few things I was thinking about these books. We were sculpting those on Tuesday. There's like nicks and cuts in the pages. I'm going to add more so they feel a bit. Hey, Moose. They're going to be a little more irregular. Currently, they feel like slabs and almost like those old. What are those? The punch card, computer punch cards. So I'm going to clean those up and modify those a bit. But I'm also thinking about selecting them and kind of slightly rotating them out a little bit. So if I can fan the books open a little bit, I think that might be kind of cool. And I might be able to do more than one book at a time. But I'll have to join them together to do it. So it's kind of like the last thing I'm going to do. But that's what we're going to work on today. We're going to keep working on it. We have the sketch over there. And we're going to add the armor. We're going to continue work on the leg plates. And I think we're going to try to sculpt at least some of the fur today. Because, again, this character's going to have like a loincloth and a big fur cape. The loincloth part is absolutely a nod to most of the He-Man characters, who all seem to have, no matter how well armored they are, always seem to have like a fur codpiece of some kind. You know, it's just cheap model making back in the day. The bodies were identical. The heads and the color of the plastic would change, but that'd be about it. So, I'm gonna make some tweaks. I just keep working on it. I hope everyone's having a nice day. If you're working on something cool, let me know about it in the chat, and maybe share an image or two over on Discord. Let me see if I can get that Discord message to pop up. Links in the doobly-doo of Twitch, but that should appear in the chat as well. I think it'll appear in the chat. Who knows? I have no idea what's appearing over on the YouTubes. I was working on some other paintings today that will go in the Prayers Handbook, but I kind of like the stream focusing on this mini, this sculpt. Now, this is a large sculpt, so it'll be like twice the size of a regular figure. But let's try something here. What I was just talking about. Book 5, 4, and 3. I recently... I don't think I've made any changes, but we're going to save just in case. So we will join those together. They didn't crash. That's great. That's good to hear. We'll hit solo. So nothing else is selected. We'll use the selection mask tool and the... Let's say the line tool. Line tool? Yeah, why not? And the result of doing this means that everything that just turned dark there is selected. And since it's selected, it will not move. So now we're going to change the pivot point here. We'll just square up those crosshairs. We're going to move it closer to the spine of that book. I have no idea if this will work. We're going to undo it anyway, just so, because it's too soon in the process to start merging those books together. I just want to see if it'll work. And actually I want to make sure I'm looking at the book square on, like directly from the side of that book. I kind of think we were, but let's make it perfect. Okay, so now when I rotate this, those elements that I've selected should move, but nothing else, or that I haven't selected. So that will scale that single page that was kind of half selected there. So we will deselect and we'll take a look at how it looks. Yeah, you can see the stretched page there. invert the selection. This means that only that page will be edited. And I could tweak that page a bit. We'll thin it up, clean it up so that the distortion is less prevalent. And we can do the same thing to the page above it. Let's clear the selection. We will invert again, smooth tool, and fix the stretched problem. And clear all. And so now the book isn't just going to be, the covers won't be parallel to one another necessarily, and I can go through and exaggerate that further so that they really feel like they're splayed out a bit, but still should have full contact with each other. This one's going to have there's a gap in there because of the way the book is tipping back. There's a way to address that. But we're going to go back. We're undo. This program is called Nomad Sculpt. It's got it's got infinite levels of undo. We were up to 26 steps there. So let's say this book here. We'll turn off solo. If I want there to be more contact with those 2 points of these 2 books, just drag that down. And all these books can have a lot more life to them when I'm done. Like, I could select each book or multiple books and then use the drag tool to kind of add some flex to them, so none of them are like machined, because that's a real telltale sign of a 3D model, is when the lines are perfectly straight. And that's kind of the default. You extrude an object, or you produce a cylinder or a box or something like that, and it's mathematically perfect, and that's just like, well, that's a 3D model. That's kind of boring. Okay. That's another reason why I do things like I'll cut notches out of boots and belts and things like that. Just little nicks and cuts to hint that that piece has a story, that there's a that armor has seen some stuff. Okay, we moved that boot up there just as an example. I think this is still a untouched, unsullied boot, and we'll build up the armor. We will have to build up a bit of a buttock to attach to the top of the thigh. I think we might be able to get away with that kind of simple action figure pelvis, depending on the cloth that we drape over it. Well, we'll figure that out. All right, so we talked about this one on Tuesday. Let me shrink that down, move it into position. I'm going to clone this knee and scale it up, and then trim it in the hopes of creating a... Oh, it's got symmetry on. I don't know if that'll matter. The good news is the legs are both bent very far, so I kind of don't have to worry about how this knee armor works when standing straight up. So I should sort of deal with that now. So this creature is called a grognard. It is talked about it a little bit here on the stream before. It's a nod to RPG veterans are often called grognards. The old school players. And so this particular book is called the Metadomain Cleric. It's for the Metadomain Cleric. And so a lot of the elements in it, a lot of the theming of it is definitely related to RPGs. And so these grognards are a nod to those veterans. And it's not meant to be disrespectful to older players. That seems to be a common sense that some people have, that that it's being disrespectful to older players. And older players sometimes... it was really interesting. This was just a topic on World of Game Design, and it seems to come up again and again over on the Ghostfire Gaming podcast. The Lorecast. Eldritch Lorecast is what it's called. That kind of tension between the older fans, the older gamers, and the newer gamers. I'm so used to talking about comic books and how it's largely a discussion of fans and fandom, whereas in RPGs, they're participants. What is that? There's a little extra bit there. Okay, that's the knee. I might be able to get rid of that entirely. Let's hide that. I'm not going to delete it. I'm just going to make it invisible for the moment. And if I can make this work without it, then I'll delete it. But gamers are participants. And that brings us a different kind of energy. I noticed that at Gamehole Con, I'm like, why is this event so different than a Comic-Con? And it had a lot to do with, I think, gamers being not just consumers. And this is like all fandom, where people can feel ownership. Let me undo that a little bit. People can feel ownership of the thing. And that whoever owns these properties nowadays, whether it's Hasbro or Warner Brothers or Disney, that they're not doing it right. Or that they're bad stewards of the thing. There's probably a good argument to be made that that's often true. Hey, Dan. Hey, Cave. I like that Humans of New York you shared, Cave. I thought that was excellent. It was a... I'm not sure who the person was who was being photographed, but it was talking about how social media changed the person and how they felt that they were being changed by social media, that it wasn't a case of... It's the idea we talk about lottery tickets. You post something online and you hope Neil Gaiman or somebody will retweet it. And that's all still fine. But how often, and how, well, this person in particular, it's too easy to turn that into that's what everybody does, or some sort of generalization. How this commenter was saying how social media was changing what they were creating, because they were trying to create things that would resonate. And I think it's easy to think of social media as like, oh no, I'm not social media is not telling me what to do. I'm using it as a focus group. I'm just focus grouping this stuff, and if it gets a good response, then I'll know to make more of it. It's not social media changing me. It's not the algorithm changing me. And I think that's a very seductive thing. I don't know how. If you upload 5 things, and it gets 20 likes, 5 likes, and then you post a sixth thing and it gets 1,000 likes, it would be tough not to try to do more of that, to get that kind of the commenter was referring to as being seen. And Dan and I talk about this on Mazes and Muses all the time, about the idea of the affirmation, the acknowledgement, the yeah, I think affirmation is just the right word. It's probably more complicated feelings, but just the sense of, you could say appreciation, you could say I'm worthy, you know, accolades, all that stuff. But I think just affirmation, blanket affirmation. Oh, I wish Felicia Day would raid this Twitch channel, Cave. I would change on a dime. I don't have any. I have no moral compass. Actually, I can just merge those together. No reason why I haven't. Join. Call those knee bolts. But last I checked, if because Dan needs his affirmation, but we all do. We all do. And we, you know, a lot of us are trying to turn these hobbies into things that will help us avoid getting a day job, and we will and in a system that kind of uses money as a reward, like if you're good enough, you'll make money at it, right? That's the thought. If you're good enough, it's not that if you're lucky enough, or if the timing happens to be right, or all the other factors that go into it. Do you do it professionally? That sort of thing. I think I can delete that. I don't even know why I still have that there. And just trying to set up, just trying to feel that kind of legitimacy. I did watch, what was it? We were talking about this, the Dungeons and Dragons channel. I watched, we joked about how I want the cooking show Hero's Feast to have more risk associated with it, like a possibility of a total party kill. Like you're dealing with poison, you're trying to prepare poisonous fish, and if you don't do it right, you know, you need to start making a con save, or everyone there dies. You know, really raise the stakes. And I watched an episode last night, and it was about, like, I guess halfling stuffed French toast. The banter was annoying. It's silly. It's not really. It needs a TLDR version. You know, you want to just. It should be 20 minutes or 15 minutes. But it looked good. The food, the French toast looked really good. So I might watch it again to see if they make more breakfast stuff. Okay. And I saw more actual play shows on that channel. It seemed like they were going through the archives of anyone or some of these, I guess, was some of the more popular actual play shows which were based on D&D properties. So like ones which were running official D&D content. So I think there's a whole archive of official D&D stuff, actual play stuff, when D&D was like, well, if Critical Role's doing this and Geek and Sundry's doing this, shouldn't we do stuff? And so they have a library of that content. One slightly interesting thing was that the show Heroes Feast was like copyright E1, a Hasbro company, back when that was a Hasbro company. They're not a Hasbro company anymore, but that means this was filmed and produced and packaged back when they were. I think. So it does kind of explain a little bit of how some of this came to be. Let's do this. I saved that copy of that knee. I'm going to clone that, move it up, make it visible, scale it, and we will try something here. Trim tool. So it adds a little extra bit there. A lot of this needs smoothing and beveling and such. But last I checked, prayershandbook.com, which takes you to the coming soon page on Kickstarter, has 249 people queued up to be notified when the campaign goes live. So I'm super. That's way more than I thought was going to be queued up. So I'm very happy about that. We talked quite a bit about some Kickstarters which have screwed up their production, and I absolutely have screwed up my production of Death Dealing in that all my Kickstarters I package myself. Table right over there, right off the camera. On the other side of my computer, I've got shelves full of inventory and boxes piled up over in the other corner. A bunch of different size boxes. Some for the decks of cards, some for if someone's ordering minis. I've got packing paper and packing peanuts and bubble wrap and all sorts of stuff everywhere. And anyway, I pack everything up myself, take it to the post office myself, and I forgot to include some stickers in I think quite a few of the packages. There was it was the very last stretch goal that we unlocked, where I was going to add the Intoximancer's flagon sticker to every order, because it was a sticker that I had made before. I didn't have a lot of them, but I placed another order, so I have them sitting there right now, and I'm just going to throw one in each box. They weigh almost nothing. It costs nothing extra to ship them, but I didn't include it in my little assembly line. So I had okay, it's going to have a postcard and a letter from me. I send a personalized note, sign it to everybody. I don't have to do that, but it feels like I should. It feels like I'm not Hasbro. They're buying it from a person, so I send them a note. I put a sticker in there, I put a postcard in there, I put their rewards in there, but I forgot that other sticker. So what I did was, everyone who backed the Death Dealing campaign, I posted a project update yesterday just for people who backed it for physical loot, not for the PDFs, because the digital people, the people getting digital rewards weren't going to get a sticker. But if you back the campaign at a physical level, I included a coupon code for you to go to my website and get a sticker for free. And not just the sticker, you could get the sentient flag, and I gave a choice of 5 stickers. And because I honestly don't know how to make WooCommerce do this, which is my e-commerce platform, I wanted the stickers. I didn't want people to pay for shipping for the stickers because that's dumb. Plus they weigh nothing. I can just put them in a regular envelope and put a stamp on it and mail it to people. And international will cost me, I know that, quite a bit. But my mistake. I gotta own it. Once I set free for the sticker, I don't know how to make it free for the sticker, but also then charge people for books if they want to order books. So not only you get the free sticker, it now activates free shipping. So whatever else you want to get on my website, if you back Death Dealing and you didn't get your sticker and you want to go get it, you get free shipping. So order a ton of stuff, free shipping. My goof, and I feel like when sometimes these campaigns mess something up, and I know that people talk about Matt Colville's campaign having goofed. What it was my understanding was that in one of the recent campaigns, the book accidentally misprinted with a blank page in it. And presumably Colville's team missed it, because if you get a PDF, every project, almost every project I've ever printed, the cards were being the one weird exception to this rule. Every project I've ever printed, they send you a proof, whether it's a physical proof of the thing printed. That's what they would do back in the day. But nowadays, here's a PDF of every page, and you review it. For me, for the most part, it's just you got to make sure that the pages aren't upside down, they're in the right order, stuff like this. They had a blank page in the book. And normally, if the book gets printed and you get it, and if it's not exactly what you approved, they will reprint it. It's on them. You asked them to do this thing, and here you are. Here's the important part. A page is blank in the book. They'll reprint the book. Presuming the company is still in business. But they never said anything like that the company was out of business. The printers were out of business. But there's a blank page in the book, and people were upset. And it seems like whoever was handling the initial message in the MCDM team, they were a little, I don't know, not a good bedside manner. I think that's what it comes down to. They basically said, we'll mail you all a sticker for you to put in the book. Case closed. Sort of like that. That may not be how they said it, or it certainly wasn't exactly what they said, but that was how it was taken. And I know a lot of people are grumpy. And MCDM is so big now that they're sometimes, I guess they're perceived as the man by a lot of people. Like, you're a big company now, you should know better. And so this thing happens. They offer to send everybody a sticker. That's not good enough. I think that, and so there's a big backlash. Big, I say big. Most people will just take a bullet for Matt Colville, and I think that's fine. But some people were grumpy about it, and you could kind of see their position. But in the way they changed that was they said, okay, you can get the book with the sticker, or you can just wait, and we'll reprint the books, and we will send you a nice, perfect, pristine copy when it comes in. Which is ideally what they should have said to begin with. You're going to get your digital copy, you can do this thing, or you can wait for the other thing. I think they were just saying that they didn't want to go to press, especially given the cost of going to press, and given that it was probably their fault. They approved it, they missed that one page, and it went through that way. So trying to learn from that, I was like, okay, what can I do? I can give everybody free shipping and give them their choice of sticker, and so far people have been great. And it's interesting, of the stickers, there's not a I think the sentient flagon might be the most popular, but not by much. It's almost an even split among the 5 different designs. But it got me thinking about free shipping on the website. I'm thinking about doing that where any orders above, I don't know, $50 might be free shipping. Because you have to order at least 2 hardcover books to get there. All right, I feel pretty good about this so far. I think I'm going to, very similar to what I just did on the side here with this band, I'm going to run a line down the middle of the shin. So I select the shin, I'm going to mesh it up, really increase the resolution. This should be easy to do. Selection mask tool, symmetry on, rectangle tool, and if I'm right, that would have gone right through the leg to the back side of the calf. Ooh, it didn't go all the way. All right, all right. Ooh, and it's a little off on the back. All right, let's get rid of it on the back. Oh, that's my cat yelling at me. Did it go all the way through? No, it did not. Good, good, good. Okay. So now I should be able to just extrude a piece off of that. So we'll go back to selection mask, extract. That's too big. We'll reduce the size to half, like 0.4. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. We will remesh it. Dan says, yeah, I just got a new proof of the Star Marshals comic, and of course something is wrong. Need to figure it out if it's on my end or their end. I think theirs. It's always something, right? Well, I'm glad you got a proof, though. That's kind of what they were missing. The idea that they must have done a digital proof, or they must have gone through so many rounds of proofs where they thought, okay, they received the last proof. We're only fixing like some periods or some typos or who knows what. I totally can imagine it happening where they get the proof, they approve it, and they missed that page. Because, I mean, in terms of having the vendors fix stuff, I had enamel pins made back for Astounding Space Thrills. I'm collecting the old webcomics. I think the next book is going to be just a collection of all of them. I did a single one, but I think I just have to collect them all in a single book. The thought about doing 3 different Kickstarters just exhausts me. I'd rather just do them in one volume. But I had these pins made, and the very first one they sent me, according to the website, and there's no way to send me a proof of a pin because you can't just make a die and do the whole pin. Basically, they have to show you a picture of it, an approximation. And the system showed me an approximation. It gave me exactly, it looked like exactly what I wanted. It was going to be like a black metal with the 3 colors, white, red, and yellow in the design. And they come back, and it wasn't black metal, and it wasn't either one of. I basically asked for 2 things which you can't do together. You can't have like a hard enamel pin, and there's 2 different kinds. You ever see an enamel pin where it kind of looks like it was a reservoir, like each one of the little color cells, and it looks like they put paint in it, and it kind of dried and creates this kind of little cavity as the paint goes in there and dries and creates a kind of a little concave reservoir. Like they could hold little bits of water in each one of the little cells. Versus a hard enamel pin, which kind of fills them up to the brim and kind of coats them with something so they have a glossy shine to the top of them. It's a much nicer looking pin. That's what I wanted. I wanted the nice shiny pin with the black metal. Can't do those 2 things together. It came back with the black metal and was all those little reservoirs. To me, it looked cheap. So they apologized, said their system shouldn't have let me pick those 2 things. We'll reprint them. They reprint them. It's got silver metal. It's got all the proper hard enamel that I wanted, but the yellow came out green. Like this color green. Like almost like, should it glow in the dark? And if I had turned off the lights and they all glowed, I would have been perfectly fine with that. I would absolutely been completely fine if all the lightning bolts in the design actually glowed in the dark. I'd be like, okay, it's wrong, I'll take it. But no, you turn off the lights and it's just the same ugly pin, but you're in the dark. They totally messed it up. So the first batch was wrong, the second batch was wrong, and they reprinted it a third time and got it right. So I forget how many pins I ordered, but I have 3 times as many. I have the rare snot variant, which I don't know what to do with. I have no idea what to do with them. So, yeah. Oh, it's fun to be an independent publisher. Dan says, thought about doing any Kickstarter, exhausts me. Oh, I did see that. I got an email from BackerKit. This not George. I thought about doing the thought about doing any Kickstarter exhausts me. Dan, did you see that BackerKit has initiated a new plan where the first $5,000 raised on BackerKit has no fees associated with it? I'm assuming they just mean no BackerKit fees. All the credit card fees will of course still be there. But if that's 2 or 3%, that will save everybody who uses their system $100 to $150. I think, if I'm doing my math right. I'm going to add that same vertical stripe down the top of the thigh. Well, no, let's do 2. Let's do 2. That'll be fine. Wish I can straighten that camera angle just a little bit. So we'll use the selection mask tool, rectangle tool, symmetry on. This should create 2 stripes. And it seems like I've just made the head of the Executioner from Marvel Comics. Okay, so we will extrude that. Same distance. Yeah, I don't hate that. We'll voxel remesh it to strengthen it, keep sharp edges, and then we'll smooth it out. Keeping sharp edges and remeshing it keeps it from just falling apart when you try to smooth it. If I hadn't done that, the whole thing might have just, as soon as I tried to hit it with the smooth tool, it would just melt like butter. Clear the selections. Sweet. That feels pretty good. I'm going to save. And we can probably move these legs up. I have to do the same thing with the arms. The hands I feel pretty good about. But I have to do the forearms and the elbows and the shoulders. I don't want to do like the pure World of Warcraft enormous shoulder pads. They just kind of look cool. So I got to play with that a little bit. And then I wanted to build that kind of weird sculpted chest piece. You know, Zeus in Thor Love and Thunder, the Russell Crowe Zeus character wears one. It's kind of ridiculous. A big rounded belly with like abs carved into it. Hey, the playmat. Thank you so much. Oh, thanks for following More Than Dice. Oh, I'm so sorry that More Than Dice didn't get a shout out. Or did you and I missed it? Make sure our wonderful graphics appear. Oh, I'm sorry about that. You're supposed to get a... So this is from my next book, The Prayer's Handbook. Stuff at the bottom there. This is the Grognard. And I have a sketch there on the right. Oh! Alright, that's the shout out that everyone that More Than Dice should have gotten. Nerdala, More Than Dice, thanks for being here. That's very nice. How are you, the playmat? So I'm working on this on a Nomad Sculpt on an iPad Pro. I've been sculpting almost 2 years now, and this is a larger character. You can see some of the pieces. I sort of made the pages for the books, and I built that hand for gripping the axe. It's a great little program. I think it's a one-time charge, $15. Oh, that's awesome. I've sculpted a few now, and all the STLs are available so far on my website. Most of them. There's one, a gigantic one I built, which is not there yet. Let me see if I can open up some others to show. Oh, this is the main one. I think this is the one. This is the one. Oh boy, that will crash this whole thing. But let's see if I can open the cleric. So this is the character that is the mini for the next campaign. Each one of the ones gets a kit, and this is the meta domain cleric. This is a cleric who thinks this all might be a game, and so it's a D&D themed cleric, or a RPG themed cleric. How about that? A legally distinct from Dungeons and Dragons themed cleric. And then I've got I'm gonna open up the orb. I have an orb here that is just kind of a palette cleanser for the poor memory of my iPad. And this is the house. This thing is gigantic. It's currently available to all my Patreon supporters. And it shows an actual mini for scale. I don't know how anyone's supposed to print this thing. I saw that new Elegoo printer that's over on Kickstarter right now, which is the size of like half a fridge. It has like a, I don't know how big, a multiple feet by multiple feet size print bed. So, I mean, if I got that, I'd start printing furniture with it. It would change how everything in my home. But it's as big as it's like a dining room table. It feels like, or half of one, and then you could build the other half with it. Yeah, I forget having a wormwood table. I would just sculpt one and and print it. All right, where was we? And so not only do I use this program for sculpting minis and things like that, I use it for creating reference for paintings and stuff. So like I sculpted this helmet and lit it. Kind of a nod to Warduke. Not kind of. Absolutely a nod to Warduke. Now Warduke's helmet doesn't have feathers. It's got those kind of bat wing ears. But it's largely the same, that kind of Magneto helmet. But I just gave it kind of feathers. So, anywho, let's get back to our grognard. Oh, and we crashed. Oh, that's Amazon. We don't need Amazon. Same color icon. But this program crashes often. The way I use it. There we go. So here's the figure. The first thing I do is I sculpt basically the pose. You can see these kind of bubble shapes. I just use circles. Get the pose roughly where I want. And then I start sculpting things like trying to get them muscularity. Try to get that correct. And so we've got the first boot and leg done, and we'll move that into position. So where was we? Okay, so we'll find the thigh here. And I try to keep these things named. So I'm making those stripes on the leg subordinate to the thigh. But while I have this thigh selected, I'm going to adjust the... Oh no, the pivot point's great. I want to make sure the pivot point is in the right area. The knee, we're going to make subordinate to the thigh, so that when the thigh moves, the knee moves with it. And then we're going to take the shin, if I can find that, and we're going to make that subordinate to the knee as well. But I do think there's some other missing pieces, which we'll see in a moment. So thigh, I rotate the thigh. Yeah, there's this missing extrusion belongs to be as part of the shin. So the thigh moves there, the knee moves here. Not perfect, but I knew that weird knee cover, that knee pad armor would be weird. I guess if I moved it, the pivot point to the center of that, oopsie-doo, to the center of that, maybe that's better. Yeah, you see how it cuts in? It's just not meant to be, you know, it's not elastic in any way. Oh my goodness, 18 folks are here. Matt, did you raid me, you lovely person? Or did I get raided by somebody and the system just didn't tell me? I really appreciate folks for being here. I recently changed this, so I'm streaming to both Twitch and YouTube. And since that happened, all my interfaces have gotten off. Well, they haven't gotten off. they've gone screwy. Streamlabs. I'm just really glad that every time I log into these systems, they act differently. That's great. Real feature. I'm going into Streamlabs to see the history, recent events. Is it not showing me because it's Fakakta? Oh, there it is. Well, no, it's not. Who knows what's happening? But thank you all for being here. You're lovely. All right. So we got one leg down. And the cool thing is once we have this leg selected, we can, well, save and drink more coffee. And then we can clone it. So that's why everything is built in the middle of the universe to start. Like I build everything smack dab in the middle of the creative space here. And then that lets me do things like use rotations and mirroring and stuff like that. Alright, so now I'm going to change this to left thigh. And I'm going to save again. And then I'm going to join them together and flip them. Now joining them all together is going to screw some stuff up. This is more like grouping, not fusing. To fuse things together, you would remesh them, but this is just grouping them together. So I hit the join button. It didn't break. My cat's yelling at me. Then I flip the object. I'll move the right leg up and out of the way. And so I build these sort of balloon animal versions of the characters first, because I really want there to be a lot of energy. And if I start getting into the weeds of sculpting all the little bits and bobs, then it all starts looking weird. Like it just becomes very stiff, kind of boring. And I'm a cartoonist first and foremost, and so I want the characters to kind of have that liveliness to them. I happen to tune into Nadala's channel. That's awesome. Alright, so I'm going to expand this, get the knee rotated a bit. The shin, I'm just going to shorten the whole thing. Yeah, I made those calves, the shins incredibly small. And I might have made the boots, I'm certain I made the boots a lot taller than, oh man, I gotta adjust the pivot point for the boot. I take the pivot, I slide it back and hope it's close enough to where we want it to be. Ooh, excellent. That has just enough contact with the ground. Alright, so I'm going to select that right thigh and turn it invisible. Select something else, and I'm going to hide these other bits. What? No, no, no. Oh, that's the other shin. That's the first one I created. Okay, okay. Whew. I'm like, what have I done? I don't hate that. So the character's going to have, like you see in the drawing there on the right, it's going to have a loincloth. Very much a nod to He-Man, Masters of the Universe, that sort of thing. Pretty ridiculous. And as someone who's run some marathons, I can tell you that this character's got a very bad... needs better running shoes, because they're kind of running on the sides of their feet. And I hope I didn't say marathons plural, because I ran one, and in about mile 17, I'm like, I'm never doing this ever again. I'd rather die. It was for charity, but it was a thing where... okay, I can delete these. Oof, rain's coming down out there. Okay, so the right thigh, we're going to move up under the pelvis, so that as this pelvis moves, you know, the legs will move with it. I don't suspect I'll be doing a lot of motion, a lot of movement with the thing, but just in case, it's better to have them kind of where they belong and where they should connect. I will take... Yeah, that's true. I'm in Florida, so who knows? I am lucky it's not going sideways. I've seen that. All right. Oh, that's great. The pivot point is back where I'm happy that it is. This is for the other leg now. We're going to move it up roughly where it should go. Look at it from the front. We will rotate it. Oh, no. Rotate it out and back. And it's going to have the same problem as the other one, where the shin is too long. But I am working now on the Prayer's Handbook, which will be the meta-domain cleric, and so far I'm very, very happy with how it's coming together. There's a whole chart right now I'm working on. I'm trying to find the names of important role-playing game and specifically Dungeons and Dragons, but any role-playing game and fantasy creators. Any fantasy creator, for the most part. Like Ralph Bakshi is falling into this category because of the work on Lord of the Rings and Fire and Ice and things like that. So Frazetta and Vallejo, artists like that, can find their way into this list. But it's largely all the people you'd think of, being Gygax and Artisan and all this stuff. Because I don't think it will find its way into the book, but the whole Dan Taylor is often the first name most people think of. But the idea that like Doctor Strange would say, the hoary hosts of Hoggoth, or all these things where you'd have this kind of alliterative mention with the last one. Is replacing Hoggoth and replacing all the Vishanti and all these things that references that wizards and magicians would make, but actually make them references to legends in D&D and role-playing games, Zeb, and things like that. I think it's silly. You know, again, I don't know who I'm making this for, but certainly making it to make myself laugh. All right, I'm gonna save this one more time because I'm a coward, and I'm gonna separate that leg, the elements there. All right, I'm gonna select it all. I'm gonna hit solo so we can only see this leg, and now I'm gonna use the selection tool, which is something when I first got this program it did not have, and I'm very glad it has it now. Excellent. So that's the foot. Let's turn solo back on again. So you select what you want to see visible, you know, the pieces you want to see. I guess the shin and the knee pad fit together. Dang it, I'm not trying to select the thigh. Sweet, I think that's the shin. Cool. I'll connect those together. Oh no, that's not what I want. That's not what I want. Dang it. I'm going to separate that out because I don't want the knee as part of it right now. I just want to select the shin. I'll connect the foot to the shin. And now I should be able to slide that forward a bit. Yeah, I was worried. I was worried that was going to go off center because it's not. There we go. A little better. All right, so that's the left thigh. We will turn that invisible. We will select this original one. That's my cat. He's yelling at me. He thinks he runs this place, and he's not wrong. Alright, attaching that to the pelvis as well. Sweet, so now when we rotate the pelvis, the leg should move with it. That's pretty good anchoring in the back there. Like, I think that the character would stand up when printed. Although, this is for purpose of the illustration, what I'm absolutely going to do is I'm going to bring this foot down flat with the ground, just so you have that kind of strong base, so the thing won't fall forward. I think given all the weight of this thing, it's going to need very strong support for printing. But Larry Elmore will always have a tiny place. Appreciate. Oh, Mocha Fiend, absolutely. Larry Elmore was absolutely included. The four guys. Let's see if I forget. Elmore, Easley, Caldwell, and is it Parkins? What's his name? Parkinson? Tell you what, I'm gonna put the screen up here for a second here. My young cat is bellowing, and I'm gonna see what's going on. It's a lot like that episode, that old Star Trek record where the cat's just screaming the entire time. I really recommend not listening to it. The Enterprise has to move this cat, this wild cat, and apparently has some sort of hypnotic pattern. Spoilers? Can you say spoilers for a 45 RPM vinyl record from the 70s? But I remember this is so cool. This is so cool. Put the record on, they start playing, and then they're moving this cat, and the cat's just screaming, and it's so annoying. All right, I'll be right back. You're going to see a little bit of artwork here for some amazing artists, way better than me, including Jeff D, a legendary D&D artist. And we're back. My cat just went back in the office, but he swears he's up to no good. But I don't believe him. Right? Up to no good? Do not. Do not. Alright, everyone. Apparently my cat wants some screen time. Right? You're no help at all. You're no help at all. I was going to say you can't just start the stream without telling us. What do you want, buddy? You just ate. You had all the food. There's no more food. You ate it all. Alright, so nothing's going to get done. Hey, Liv. This cat is awesome and annoying. I know, buddy. I got stuff to do. I got things to sculpt. All right, you're the best. You can't be up here. The best part is that he will jump on my chair, and he will use the the height release valve as leverage to get up, and my chair will immediately sink down and so I guess I'm meeting him halfway. All right, where was we? All right, the grognard. All right, so we got leg armor. I have no idea how I'm going to sculpt this loincloth, but let's give it a try. How hard could it be? I'm not... Oops, I shrunk that foot accidentally. I'm not entirely sure if I like how that... Come on, Steve, click the right thing. I'm not sure if that thigh is connected properly. Ooh, how come it's not connected anymore? Oh. There we go. I feel like that needs to come in a bit. And the pivot point needs to be up by the pelvis. That pivot point tells us where, when we rotate it, what's the center point of the rotation, that pivot point. And so part of this is that when I'm done with this sculpt, I'm going to create a duplicate copy of it. And, well, one thing I do is I select pieces of it that are grouped together or joined together, and I will use the decimate function, and that tends to bring the file size down for those pieces. Like all these little pieces are just way too large. So I'm going to join them together. Don't crash. Thank you. Left thigh. I'll save again. And to decimate, this is like 1.5 million vertices. I hit decimate, and it cuts the number in half. And then I want to cut the number in half again. Little steps like that along the way will keep this program from crashing. Again, I'm doing all this on an iPad, a 4th generation iPad Pro. Oh, thanks, Liv. That's very nice. I really appreciate it. Okay, so we can sculpt a loincloth. Why not, right? Like a lot of this stuff in this program, a lot of the stuff that I'm doing here, I've never sculpted any of this before. I don't know what I'm doing. I have sculpted an axe before, and this is probably the 7th or 8th hand that I've sculpted. But being a cartoonist really, really helps. I think you draw enough hands, you draw enough feet. It really helps you know how you want things to look. So I think if you're an artist in any way and have... They talk about the 10,000 hour rule. I think if you've put in, I don't know, 10,000 hours in any other adjacent field, you kind of have a leg up in the other one. Alright, so... And loincloth. I'm going to move this down and just change the color so we can see it. Scale it up and get it roughly into position. Just so the size is kind of close to what we want. This is ridiculous. But only ridiculous in that every Masters of the Universe character is wearing a fur diaper. You know, I say that now. If Skeletor were here, I would be like all respectful and wouldn't make fun of him for his diaper. I'm a coward. Alright, so let's grab the paint tool, which I can find. There it is. Choose a nice simple color, small brush, and roughly, turn symmetry off. And it would sweep around like the shape of the figure. I think. Now your typical action figure would not do that since it doesn't have a fixed pose. Something like that. And then I'm going to draw the waistline in, kind of like that. Something like that. Alright. We'll remesh to increase the resolution of what we're working with. Yeah, multi-resolution will be lost. Blah, blah, blah. And we'll just start cutting into the thing. I'm trying to watch the angle that I'm cutting so as not to cut through the object. Like I want to cut through, but I don't want to bore a hole through the thing. Wow. I don't know why. We did this before. Auto-validate does some weird stuff. Let's, Alright. Smooth out all this stuff. Yeah, it's a mess. Oh, it hollowed it out. Oh, that's messed up. Undo, undo, undo. All right, we'll use the crease tool. Oh, we'll use the clay tool. We'll do that first. Just going to build up the fur. So just trying to create some prominent striations. Like this is like striped pants to start, and then we'll go in and we'll add additional layers. Oh, ooh, right. I'm treating it like this is a haircut, and it shouldn't be that. It should be fur, so the stroke should be shorter. I'm gonna put a little bit of swoop in them, so like they're curlier bits of fur. I have no idea if this will work, but let's find out. So I'm just using the clay tool and building up with a few passes. Just a little elevation. Kind of looking at the simple paint strokes I put on there as a guide. Now that stroke, that was too long. I'm going to stick with shorter segments. And I can't zoom in too much because this program is weird in that the size of your... If you have a certain size brush, if you zoom in, the brush gets larger compared to the object you're working on. Right? So the brush is the size of the screen, not the size of the objects. I don't know if that makes sense. So if you zoom in, the brush is still the same size to the screen, so it will be larger compared to the object. If the object zooms out, that brush is enormous. If you zoom in, that brush is much smaller. Zoom out, same brush, much larger. So you got to watch as you're working with this program to kind of try to stay in the same, roughly the same zoom the whole time. So I saw that Hulu and Disney are going to merge together at some point, and Hulu recently went to $18 a month for the ad-free version. I'm like, the hell, 18 bucks? I'm like, so what is it to get Disney? Because I didn't have Disney. I wanted to see. I usually got it after like there'd be like a Mandalorian season or something like that, and then Disney did that AI garbage with the opening credits of Secret Invasion. I'm like, I don't want to support that nonsense. And then now it's like the strike is over. Hopefully AI has been put in its place for a little while. I hope. I'm going to clear out the paint stroke here. We'll change the color back to white. Okay, it's getting there. I don't hate it. Let me zoom in a little bit more. I have to put in absolutely clearer, like fur striations and hair striations and things like that. But it was $2 more a month to get Hulu and Disney Plus without ads. So I did that. And I thought, okay, let me I watched that Eternals movie. Let me give it another shot. I probably judged it harshly. Let me take a look at it. See if I was being too critical. And it starts with that huge wall of text. Not a huge wall of text. It's like the crawl from Star Wars, but everything they're saying is boring. I'm like, oh man, I didn't last. And when I say that, I mean boring to me. I'm not saying it's boring to everybody. I don't think that if I don't like it, it sucks. but man, I could not get into it. I'm going to soften this area up. I want to smooth this area out a bit and then build up the fur a bit more. But I've been watching The Bear on Hulu, and it's an excellent show. Right, how's it looking at? It's getting there. I wouldn't want to sculpt a tribble. But it's suitably ridiculous, and that's what I was going for with this figure. Excellent. Okay. So here's what we can do. We can take a big brush and the drag tool and pull that into the surface of the other thing, and then the pieces that stick out will hopefully help create the illusion of fur. And then I'm going to go back in there and make more edits to things. Like adding spikier bits to it. I feel like that should come out more, a little bit more. Maybe sculpted that a bit too much. Or carved out a bit too much there. I don't think I want to show that much thigh. Or underbutt. So much distortion. I probably shouldn't have cut it at all. I probably should just have built in the fur area and then worried about adjusting it later. But I've been doing a lot of work on the meta domain. Last I checked, there were 249 people signed up for when it goes live. So that's encouraging. The good news is I have a track record from my previous projects, but I think it'll be a more difficult sell because the project's a bit weirder than the other ones. So I'm already second guessing every part of it. So I'm building up these little ledges, trying to add a little bit of character where I can, like a little curve to them. So like the fur is kind of going in all sorts of directions. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to build these things up, build them up again, smooth them in between each attempt, and then I'm going to go back and add sort of peaks on top of them to give them sharp edges to hopefully make them look even more like fur. So smooth tool hitting the whole thing. The front looks a little weird. Very much doesn't feel like a loincloth. It feels. I gotta slide the whole piece back a little bit. Also, that's a big problem too. I have that circle that's under there. I'm gonna hide this sphere, and I'm going to disconnect those things from the pelvis, and I'm going to hide the pelvis. So the original sphere that was there acting as the pelvis, that's gone now. I mean, it's still technically there, but it's hidden. So now I can build this and not worry about the other thing getting in the way. Or I just feel like this needs to have a sense of drapery to it, like it's a tabard. It's too big a brush. Moving too much material. Talked about it before. There's a new actual play show that I really liked called Natural Six. It's a bunch of voice actors, you know, so friends who are voice actors. I don't know if that formula sounds familiar at all. They ran a really good game. I thought good chemistry, simple storyline. I mean, it's not. I'm not sure if there's only one episode, and it was a short episode at that, which I think was a really smart idea. A lot of these actual play streams want to go on for 2 hours or 3 hours. That's asking a lot. I was wondering if this stream would be better as a 2-hour stream 3 times a week as opposed to 3 hours 2 times a week. I'm going to remesh this, try to reinforce some of the, just to hold on to some of the strength of the thing. Oh my goodness. A party of one? That's my kind of party. How are you, Alan? It's got to be... So nice to see you. Everyone should check out Alan's work. Amazing fantasy work, all done in ballpoint. really stunning. I think, yeah, I looked at it, I was just dazzled. Okay, I'm going to duplicate these. Let's call it the loincloth. Loin, I can type. Loincloth. Clone. Oh. And now this is the crease tool. We'll show you over here on the thigh. Normally, when you just crease, it will just dig into the shape. But if you invert it, hit that sub button, it'll make a peak. Like a raised portion of it. So a nice large brush, some juice to it. And so on this layer of fur, if I actually have the thing selected the way I'm supposed to, maybe a bigger brush, maybe a little more juice. I can build up these areas and then subtract as well. What's going on there? Oh, I had the other loincloth still visible, so when you dig into something and there's an exact duplicate the exact same size underneath it, you're not going to see anything. So I can have these two effects complement one another. So I come in and raise an area. Largely trying to follow the prominences and elevations that I already set up, and then in between them kind of dig in these valleys. Your stream needs to be a minimum 18 hours. Is that right, Cave? I think you do the usual 37 hours a day. I don't know how you do it. And I'll wake up and see notifications from Twitch that Alan, that you were streaming at would have been, I guess, would have been like 7 a.m. my time. So I would have. There's no way I'm ever going to catch those morning streams. Oh no, that's symmetry. I don't want that on. I was trying to hit the other button. Yeah, the cat made a cameo, LJ. But they may come back. Their movements are on a need to know basis, and they generally let me know. They arrive precisely when they mean to. So, I have not sculpted a loincloth before, so I don't know what I'm doing. But so far, I don't hate it. So we'll just go around the whole thing. You're right, okay. Very shades of Waddle Bottom, the duck, that sculpt took about 2 months here on the stream. This is stream 5, so what is that? 2.5 weeks of streaming? The Waddle Bottom, the Lord of all ducks, took a while to do. I was very new to the program, very new to sculpting, but I'm like, I'm going to sculpt a duck, and I'm going to sculpt, you don't need to sculpt every feather. You can just sculpt, you know, a semicircle, and then I'll just lift up parts that would hint at being feathers, right? And I started doing that. Probably spent a stream or two working on that, and then gave up and sculpted every feather. But I shared over on Discord, Elegoo has a new printer that they're kickstarting right now, which is massive. It's the size of a... It looks like the size of a... Like half of... Like a washing machine. It's actually probably the size of it. Maybe the size of a... Like a size of a dishwasher or a washing machine. And naturally it's an open... it's an open shape, and so it doesn't have walls around it because, you know, that's ridiculous, the size it is. I could just imagine my cats in there. But it's amazing. The main problem I have with all 3D printers is that I know the moment I buy it, they're going to release a better one. It's how I used to feel about computers before computers all basically they sort of tapped out in terms of their tech. But the size of this thing is just ridiculous. It would change how I do most of everything. I'd be like, should I get a new bookcase or just print one? Furniture. Like I said before, like I would not ever get a wormwood table or any one of those large gaming tables. I would just make one. I'd make it in pieces. I'd sculpt it myself. WizKids has that huge baby dragon sculpt that they're selling. They have that lovely Pathfinder kobold. I would just have like a full-size baby dragons from my webcomic. Cut that one in half there. How we do it? I sculpted a duck. All the feathers. Let's see if I might not have it on this device anymore. I might have, in a weird moment of being reasonable, removed it. Where are you? Did I get rid of Waddlebottom? Oh no, there he is. Oh boy, this is the one where the platform at the bottom got all messed up. Waddlebottom reduced 2. I sculpted that stump, and then somewhere along the way I just rotated it, and it just somehow stayed saved that way. So this is a mini. So this is that's a 1-inch base that this thing's sitting on. So the thing's very tiny. It's got way too much detail than any mini ever in the world should have. It's stupid, but I didn't know any better, and I haven't learned. But I sculpted each one of these feathers. I think they're fused together now. But I sculpted one wing, and then I flipped it, and then bent that wing so that I didn't have to sculpt a wing, all those feathers twice. The back of the duck is largely, half of it was sculpted and then mirrored, and then I adjusted feathers in the middle to kind of weave the back feathers so it wasn't just purely mirrored, because that would have been boring. I even sculpted another little creature down here, to the point where the model is actually kind of like, where it's like pixel art, or it's Minecraft level of detail. I sculpted the centers of these flowers. the mushrooms, a loose duck feather. And every time I did something like I made one of these flowers and then cloned it and used it again, I felt like I was cheating. Like, oh, no, you have to make each one separate. And to help keep the figure standing, I kind of anchored Waddle Bottom's butt to the trunk of the tree. And then there's a map, a scroll back there, which is from the story. This is a character from the Middle Age, which you can read at middleagecomic.com. And the scroll is very key to the story, and his delivery of that scroll is key to the story. Oh, thanks so much. You bought yours, the 3D printer, a year ago and still haven't used it? At least if you want to print it bigger with all the details you get. Oh, yeah, and this is exactly what I would do with it. If I get like a Carbon X1, which is the printer I'm currently looking at, which is an FDM printer. It's very large. It's the size of a, I don't know, size. It's a tabletop device, but it's large. It's well bigger than a microwave. It's like 4 microwaves stacked up. It would have to be on sale. It'd have to be on sale. But the very first thing I would do is printing Waddle Bottom. Maybe the house. One of those two. And this is something I've wanted to make for a while too. Melvin's mug. Oh my goodness, I would add so much more detail if I was doing this again. I didn't know what I was doing. This was a very early sculpt. And I was so proud of myself. It's scales. I had to rotate them so they didn't match up perfectly. I didn't know how to bend the wings. I didn't know what I was doing. But still, that would be a pencil holder. There's still the sphere of the pot-bellied dragon under there. I have to flatten that out. Amazing. That's got to be 2 years old. Oh, nearly 2 years old. And then this was the second one I ever sculpted. And I was really happy with how it turned out. It was like, okay, I'm going to keep doing this stuff. I sculpted an earlier version of... The first thing I sculpted was him. And I thought, wow, this is awesome. I thought, man, I'm never going to... Do I still have him? I do. Oh, wow. That means there's nothing well designed or proportioned or skillfully sculpted in this character. It's too big. I wonder if it'll crash again. Oh wow. So this was the first one I sculpted. I was so proud of myself. And it's fine. But look how stiff it is. The only thing I kept between this one and that one was the sword. Because I sculpted that in Adobe, because it has better extrusion tools, and the boot. I really liked how that boot turned out, and I threw out everything else. Like, I could build this again. Oh my goodness, the numbers in the upper left are so deep red. That means this thing is like screaming at me. If it crashes again, we can't blame it. It's totally my fault. I have this ball that I open up as a way to, instead of having one large document open and then opening another large document, I kind of go easy on the program by opening up a very small document in the middle. I'm looking for a printer to make cosplays, but I'm broke. That's tough too. Those ones, the P1P is also from Bamboo Labs, and it's, I don't know, $700. It looks like it'll do 10 by 10, a 10 by 10 by 10 area, which is pretty impressive. It can't do all the materials of the X1 Carbon, but I don't know. Fingers crossed for a Black Friday sale or something like that, or I don't know. It always seems out of reach. There are some places where I know there's some counties in the U.S. which have maker labs. Some are part of the county library system, and some are just local organizations that have gotten together, and a bunch of local makers have pooled resources, and for a fee you can have access to the equipment there. And some of them have 3D printers. You know, there is the learning curve. Each 3D printer is different, and some are more forgiving than others, or easier to use than others. But that is a way to get access. I don't have any in... The nearest one is 90 minutes away from me, so not ideal. Alan, thanks so much for being here. Thank you for the raid. And Eric, communal printing. Oh, don't worry. There's a cover charge. There's like all these groups require payment, unless it's a library, local library. Apparently, there was in the county here in Florida, they had put together a 3D printer, or had a 3D printer donated by a company. I'm drawing a blank as the name of the company. But I don't think there was any upkeep, and the technology, once it was 5 years old, nobody wanted to use the equipment anymore. I think FDM printers, by and large, were falling out of favor until Bamboo Labs and some of these other ones came up with high-speed FDM printing with better details. There's like a motion... It adjusts based on the motion of the surface it's on. Like they were saying, oh, you want to use an FDM printer or any printer, you want to use it on as stable a surface as possible because of the, if the bed is moving that the thing's on, or the arm is moving and it's shaking the whole cabinet and the table, or shaking the table that it's on, you want to use it on a concrete surface, like a concrete floor, garage floor, or something like that. And somebody decided to test. I saw this on YouTube. They're like, no, this motion, the motion adjustments are there. And so what they did was they had the printer set up, hooked up, hanging from a cord from the ceiling. So it's just swinging there, printing, and it's all wobbling the whole time, and the print came out pretty much perfect. So anyone who's complaining about this guy using an old workbench or a IKEA table, kind of was put in their place. I mean, yes, have it hanging from the ceiling produced slightly less than optimal results, but still, better than most machines. I admired that person putting it to the test. I'm going to cut through some of these more prominent elements. I'm just cutting through and creating kind of a sharper point. I figure if I cut into the shape as it intersects with the thigh, it'll look more like fur. And then I'm going to go back with the opposite effect, and we'll bring out the sharper points. I might hit with the smooth tool first. Interesting, that looked like a plant a little bit there. I gotta remember that. Yeah, yeah, that's how they did it. Pure elbow grease. That's how they succeeded. I think some people have suggested that them growing up incredibly wealthy may have contributed in some way to their wealth, but I don't know how you'd ever prove that. I think those celebrities clearly got there with moxie. Gail Simone over on the Twitter, I believe she also mentioned it on the Blue Sky, was asking people to talk about what comic hooked you, like what got you into comics. And got me thinking about the ones that got me, and there was one in particular was a book. I guess it was printed in the 70s. It was it collected the early Spider-Man comics into a paperback size book. I think Pocket Books printed it, and it collected the first 4 issues of Spider-Man. There was another one that collected the next 4. I haven't looked at the books in a while. I think that they cut the comics up to fit the format. I could be misremembering that. But there was a Fantastic Four one, a couple of Spider-Man ones, there was a Doctor Strange one, and the other one I had was Conan, with art by Barry Windsor Smith. It was interesting because that was the one where the artwork was the most different than the others. Ditko and Kirby definitely were cut from the same kind of cloth. And Barry Windsor Smith was so different. I didn't like it as much, but it seemed appropriate for the stories. I think I was thrown off too because I knew the Conan movie at that point, and the Conan comics didn't seem like it was connected in any way to that. I think that was what a lot of people feel nowadays when they see a Marvel movie and the comics are not the same, don't reflect the characters or the situations from the movies. They're like, hey, I just saw this Batman movie. Can I get a comic that features that character? Like, well, no, not really. There are 10 other Batman books, and none of them feature the Batman you saw on the screen. It seems like that's more a fault of the publisher than anybody else. If you're going to have a movie come out, you should produce something that goes along with that movie. That was always the thing, to create movie tie-ins. When the Batman movies came out in the 80s, there was a Batman comic, but they specifically went out of their way to make a Batman movie adaptation comic. That seems like something they should still do. You like Miss Marvel? Here's a version where she has the same powers as the TV show and not the kind that she has in the comics. And Spidey and Carnage were... I can tell you about the comic that turned me off from comics as a kid. Wow, I never had that kind of experience. It was a random issue of Spider-Man where Venom was put on trial and his lawyer was Daredevil, and Spidey and Carnage were surprise witnesses. It had super 90s art, but all the characters still had thought bubbles. Even 8-year-old me thought it was too corny. But that you said made you almost give up on. You say that turned you off from comics as a kid for years. So you saw that and thought, oh, I don't want to read any more comics. Or comics are no good. Yeah, a lot of people have that experience with prose. I've met multiple people. It's anecdotal, but it seems to keep coming up. They say that they don't like to read, or they only read nonfiction because the fiction that they were first exposed to was stuff they didn't like The Great Gatsby. They were kids, and they were told, you have to read this, it's good. And they were like, they didn't want to read after that. How are we doing? 6 o'clock. Doing great. Yeah, it was the first comic normally I talk about the first comic I bought off the rack. When I was reading comics, you could buy them at 7-Elevens. Or at least when I first read comics. The first one I ever bought was at a 7-Eleven. And it was Godzilla number 10. Godzilla versus Yetrigar. I'm drawing a blank right now. It was the greatest Yeti of them all or the biggest Yeti of them all. So it was Godzilla versus a giant Sasquatch. Considered by many to be the Great Gatsby of comics. So I'm just running along the top of these protrusions now with make this brush a little larger. So I'm doing this for this loincloth. I'm going to have to do this whole thing for the cape this guy's wearing too. I probably could have just given him a tabard like every other character I've created so far, but it felt like... I don't know why. I really wanted to make a nod to the Masters of the Universe. I felt like the Grognard should have a old school, you know, have some old school embellishments like the old Masters of the Universe loincloth. Wow, not bad, right? Never made that before. I think it turned out alright. What did you say? Instead of Law of Order, what Spider-Man characters? When I finally got into comics, it was through trade paperbacks of Bendis' Daredevil and the Loeb Tim Sale Batman books. I guess I'm living proof direct market floppy doesn't work. Yeah. I found my calling, Dan. Yeah, I don't know. It definitely works in some degree, but I do think that the trades are definitely better. I was thinking about this with the I talked about this before with Gamehole Con, and how the audience in Gamehole Con very much reminds me of comic book crowds for 25 years ago. They're very homogenous. There's some increased representation, but it feels like it has more to do with like the shift of the century more than some sort of internal spark that has brought a fresh audience to, like, changing demographics have more to do with the broader population than with the culture of the gaming world. Whereas with the comics, the influx of manga and webtoons and anime and those things have done so much to broaden the appeal of the medium, and games haven't had that kind of... They don't have that. There's no way to onboard people the way webtoons and manga does. But what they do have is they have that. I think that change that took place when Neil Gaiman showed up in comics, and that's what Critical Role is doing. I think for games, I think they're bringing in a different audience that was not there before. The way Sandman brought in a very different audience for comics and into comic book stores. I feel like that's a very good thing. I'm gonna remesh this again. I also thought it was interesting that Gamehole Con, again, is not Gen Con. It's not one of the giant shows. Um, and they're very proud of. I saw a note about it very recently, last 48 hours. Maybe it was relation to Mr. Cammers, when the founder and organizer of GameholeCon had a Kickstarter that just wrapped up today. And was saying that convention is the largest game-centered convention. The world's largest game-centered. Like, the idea being that Gen Con and these other ones might be more centered on, I don't know if he said TTRPG centered or RPG centered, that other conventions might be more, I don't know, they just have more video games or they have more Hollywood. It's very much the claim that conventions, comic conventions like Baltimore and Heroes Con mention, the idea that those shows are the largest comic shows, whereas San Diego and New York feel like publishing events and movie events that are as much about the premiere of new toys as they are about comics. And I know San Diego Comic-Con bristles at that because they're like, their charter is as a non-profit is to be promoting comics. So it's one of the reasons why, as an organization, they're kind of like required to continue to be a comics event, even if Hollywood desperately wants them to give all the space to the next Tom Cruise property. Well, now there are kids who are getting the comics through manga and webcomic. Absolutely, absolutely. So they're living proof American printed books don't work. I can't tell if you're being facetious, Eric. I know you run sarcastic, so I can't tell. I don't think they don't work. Just because other things work doesn't mean that the other thing. Just because one thing works doesn't mean the other thing doesn't. Right? Two things can work. One might be more effective. One might reach a different audience. Your facetiousness. Gotcha. And I think there's probably an argument that could be made that the printed books aren't effective in terms of growing the audience. But that I wouldn't put that at the feet of other mediums being effective, right? It's not. That's often what people will do is they'll see one thing that's effective, and then they'll say, well, this isn't effective, and therefore the reason is because the other thing is. And I'm like, well, there's so many issues with the modern direct market that I don't know. I wouldn't put any of those faults at the feet of webcomics or manga. Like, they just announced the books that will be as part of Free Comic Book Day every year in May. Almost always the first Saturday in May. Usually it coincides with the pandemic messed stuff up, and usually it coincides with the release of a big one of the first big movies of the summer is usually the first weekend in May. So almost always the last 10 years it's been a Marvel movie or a DC movie or something. So there's a big comic weekend, and that Saturday is Free Comic Book Day, and comic book stores, participating comic book stores, offer free comics. Some of them might have strings attached. You go in there, you have to buy a book, or you can only get one. But usually it's hundreds of books that you can. And some comic book stores invite families in. They have big cookouts outside. They have big events, and just come in there and you take as many books. And kids leave with armfuls of comics. And they announced some of the books this time around, and some of them are really good. And I hope that the comic stores figure out a way to leverage that to increase their audience. I know one of the books was Dana Simpson's Phoebe and Her Unicorn, which is a newspaper comic strip and a collection of books. There's a whole line of Phoebe books, Phoebe and Her Unicorn books. I would hope that since there's a Phoebe and Her Unicorn comic, that they would stock those books in the shop as well. so that if kids go in there and they get that book, that becomes a feeder for comics and graphic novels. I mean, the biggest thing in the American market right now is the young adult, the YA graphic novels, all the stuff of Raina Telgemeier, Jamar Nicholas, Kazu Kiyoshi, and Jeff Smith with Bone. So many amazing books just specifically for kids, and hopefully those readers continue to read afterwards. But I think they're more likely to read on webtoons than they are to go start reading Batman. Okay, so I feel pretty good. We got the legs. The legs feel like they're done. Holy cow. That turned out way better than I thought it was going to. I never sculpted a loincloth before, so I'll let my New York accent completely come out for that. I'm going to stretch my legs. I'm going to take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll work through the rest of the hour. It's been raining here. I thought the power might fluctuate. So far, so good. We've been doing great. We had quite a few people in here a little while ago. I appreciate everyone showing up. If you haven't checked out my work, please check out middleagecomic.com. If you haven't yet queued up for the next Kickstarter, prayershandbook.com. If you missed my previous books, Intoximancy or Death Dealing, those are available on my website. You can check out. I'll type in the word shop. Info in the doobly-doo. And I will see you all back here in a few minutes. I'm going to stretch my legs. And we're back. How's everybody doing? So we are working on this grognard, a sculpture of this monster. So far so good. We just finished up sculpting a loincloth, a fur, something that's meant to be very similar to Masters of the Universe, a ridiculous loincloth. I think it needs a big belt. Part of what makes those work is that pro wrestling belt they put around the midsection. So I think I have to. I was thinking about that. I need to wrap this character with a big old belt. As I get up, I saw that a package had arrived. The Sticker Mule, which is the company that makes the stickers I use, they got the stickers for the Metadomain Cleric, which is what the Prayer's Handbook is. So those stickers are in already. Campaign hasn't even launched yet. We have the stickers. And there was something really funny I saw at Gamehole Con. It was Chris Arneson, an artist, really excellent artist, excellent painter. And he did the poster for this year's Gamehole Con. They do an art print every year. Not the poster. I think they have a different promotional poster, kind of a Chris Schweitzer cartoony style, really cool. But the print they had, which could have been the cover of any one of the classic D&D books, is by Chris Arneson. A really cool image. But he had stickers on the table. Kids would come up and they're like, "Oh, can I have a sticker?" And like, "No, he's like, "Oh, no, that's how he, can't give stickers away." He said, "But I do have a sticker for you," and he gave them away this. Every time you order something from Sticker Mule, they throw this sticker in of their mascot. He saved them. I never know what to do with these things. Every time I order, I get one, and he's like, "Hey, you want a sticker?" And they're like, they don't know it's the free sticker from the printing company. That kid lit right up. It was wonderful. Super smart. It didn't let anything go to waste. The kid was very happy. Yeah, pretty awesome. Okay, so we're getting there. The cape will be the last thing we do, but I'm going to try this belt thing. I didn't really plan for it. You can tell. It could just be a cylinder, but now I want it to be like a real pro wrestling Wally Wood style belt. The Wally Wood belt would be... Yeah, let's do this. I don't think I've done this before either. I'm just going to cheat. It might have kind of a gradual swoop to it. Like the pro wrestling belt would have this big old buckle on the middle of it, and maybe decoration, like some, I don't know. The Wally Wood one would just have concentric circles. That's like Dynamo's belt from the Thunder Agents. But I feel like a pro wrestling style belt would be perfect. And of course, because it's this character, we already have that skull emblem set up, so the skull would go right there. Yeah, that's what we do. Paint, force paint all. Why go to a different program? I can just draw on the base. Okay. So to do that, it's got to fit this character's shape at the moment. That's how we do it. That's how we do it. That's how we do it. I'm going to clone the chest. It's a separate piece. I'm going to clone the loincloth. That's a separate piece. I'm going to select them both, and we're going to mesh them together. So now we have this thing. So the belt's got a weirdness to it because it has to follow... It has to be above the thigh and kind of above the loincloth. Okay, okay, okay. We could do that. So I'm going to use the paint tool again. We're just going to sketch on there kind of what we want. Small brush. Well, let's leave symmetry on. I think it's still helpful. There we go. Yeah, it falls below the shape of the loincloth. And we'd want it to go back Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. So the easy thing to do might be to smooth these together and then extrude from it. And hope for the best. Hope that the curve that's created at that join of the two pieces. I like how smoothing it is also smushing the paint. Boy, it's got to go low to capture that part. I might have to build up the loincloth up to about this line on the back of the, so that the fur will connect with the belt. But the belt has to bend along this angle, and that's going to look weird. So classic pro wrestling, old style comics, it's the belt will have to go higher, like almost follow the rib cage, which would force. Oh! The belt could be like all like a hernia belt in the back. It could get wider back there as well, which might be more appropriate for a grognard. Okay. All right. Sweet. Okay, we have this. We're gonna call you chest. No. I'll take that. Select the other chest by itself. We're gonna clone that. I don't know. You can't draw on two. So that when two objects are selected, you can't draw on both. Let's presume I can do this right. Nope. Keep going, Steve. Keep going. Okay, I'll extrude from that. It's a little high in the front. Maybe bring it lower to connect with that line, that silly line I've got drawn there. I'm going to erase the top part there. Now the reason why the line's so pixelated is that this is a very low res object that I'm drawing on right now. So we'll adjust that. We will remesh it up much higher, much higher. And the thing is, we're going to cover the whole thing with armor anyway, so this belt has to be super chunky. So there's going to be armor there, and the belt has to protrude past that. And it's got to be protrude past all that fur. So we will now use the selection mask tool. Front-facing vertex only. That's important because that means that when we mark this thing up, we are not let me adjust one thing first. Front-facing vertex only means that you only draw on one side of the object, not through the object. I'm going to lower the opacity here. We're going to set this color back to white. With a big brush, I'm just going to lightly mask out some of these lines I've already drawn here so I can see what I'm doing. I'm just painting with white on top of these so they're not quite so prominent. And I'm going to have to smooth out some of these pieces, specifically this part here. Because that dent in the back, if we extrude the belt from it, it will extrude, those dents will be visible in the mesh. So I'm just going to smooth them come out completely, or try to anyway. This should let that, when the belt pops out, that it should be smoother. Fingers crossed. Same thing with here on the sides. And that bit. I'm going to remesh it and smooth it out some more. Whenever you're smoothing something out, you can remesh, and that kind of resets the... If you're feeling resistance on the smoothing or the extruding or the drawing of something, just remesh it again, and that'll fix some problems. Now, it will often lead to some degradation of detail because it has to kind of evenly spread the mesh out over the surface of the object as best it can, and in so doing, it has to make some decisions. And every time the AI is making a decision, it's usually bad. It's suboptimal. Alright, so lasso tool to start. Now mirroring is still on, which I'm happy about. Right, no idea if this will work. Seems to be the mantra of this channel. Alright, extrude, we'll push the thickness, extract. A little bumpy in places. I should have remeshed it further before doing this. I remeshed it down. That was a mistake. No, to smooth it out, I remeshed it down. But when I was putting this drawing on it, I should have remeshed it back up, because you'll see when I do this, it'll be a much smoother line. Like you can see the jagged bits there, but now when I go over it, the same effect is just going to be much smoother. Oh well. Live and learn. Or live and learn and learn and learn and learn and learn and then die with a full brain. All right. Still a little dent there. I'm going to unmask and try to smooth this out the other way. A little stair stepping right there I worry about. All right. Extrude that again. Still has a little dent. I wonder if that's in the model and not in the selection. Oh well. Okay, so that's our big old ridiculous belt. I don't hate it. But I was right, I have to add to the loincloth for the back. Alright. We'll select that, we'll force paint all to clear it, and we'll delete that. We don't need the chest, no! We'll force paint that white as well. Belt. Save. We'll sip some coffee. And I do like when these fur bits poke out over the belt. I think that's ideal. That's what you want. I think we want it to. Oops. We want to make it look like it's barely containing the fur. Ridiculous. Ridiculous, and I couldn't be happier. I love that it's a girdle now. That's even better. I feel like I've got a variation of the Bob Ross line of the happy little accidents. Mine would be the stupid little accidents. So I've been rearranging everything in my home lately, mostly to make room for like fulfillment of orders, of Kickstarters, of all sorts of stuff. And been trying to sort through papers and dig through old archives. And for the longest time, as an illustrator, as a cartoonist, I saved a lot of my art, too much of it, when it wasn't like it has zero value. It is just tons and tons and tons of sketches, but every once in a while I find something like, that's not so bad. And I found I did a Power Rangers cover a couple of years back, and I found the artwork for that. I'm like, this isn't bad. This stuff isn't. This is actually a piece that is worth keeping. Don't know where I put it. I put it over there. I'll just share that because it was a preliminary piece. It was a piece that and that was a very complicated cover. Maybe I have a copy of it here. It's over on my website, but I'm still very proud of it because I wasn't a huge Power Rangers fan. I was a little too old for it when it came out, and boy, I may not have it here. I was a little too old for it when it came out, and no, I don't. So I asked around, like, okay, so what should it be on the cover? Because it could be anything Power Rangers related, and universally I was told, oh, it should be the Green Ranger and the Dragon Zord. And I'm like, okay, that sounds cool. What are those? And I dug into it. I watched the first episode where that appeared. And I get it. It's really awesome. So the Green Ranger has a dagger flute. And they play a little song. It's like a little pan flute kind of thing. With the dagger's got the flute built into it. And which summons the giant robot Godzilla, the Dragon Zord. So I have the Green Ranger standing atop a pile of rubble, and this isn't like almost always the comics are like they're lunging forward. Characters are if you could see their faces, they're all grimacing and they've got knives and everyone's leaping forward, and it's basically what Kevin Eastman in Peter Laird did with the Turtles a bazillion years ago, and everyone's just doing the same thing. They were riffing on the cool stuff that Frank Miller was doing, and but like people don't know how they've descended into parody of parody of parody. So I feel like that's done, and I can't I can't compete with that stuff, and B, it's been done to death. So what can I do differently? So I have got the character standing atop a pile of rubble, and is playing the flute. Has the dagger to their lips. They're the mask. They're ridiculous about how they. I don't know how you play that instrument with a full face mask. But I found the sheet music for the flute. It's a very short tune, and I have those notes appearing as concentric circles radiating out from the Green Ranger, and then standing behind the Ranger and the pile of rubble upon which they are atop a pile of rubble, is the Dragon Zord. It really turned out really way better than I would have hoped. It was the grognard loincloth of covers, if you will. And I found the first sketch I did for that, and it was pretty tight. It was like, oh, this is... I had a plan, apparently. See this belt. I want to see if I can rotate this a little bit. Pivot center? Nope. Okay. We're gonna to get this pivot point just right, to get to rotate the way I want, if it will do it at all. I want to rotate these things so that they're perfect right angle, like that. I want those to be perpendicular to each other. I rotated it just a little bit, just so that belt buckle doesn't quite intersect with the thigh. But I had a lot of luck with the covers I did. I haven't done a lot of covers for other people. I'm not often asked in the world of comics. There's a retailer who's a dear friend who owns a comic shop. When I say retailer, that's what I mean. A fellow who owns a comic shop who occasionally will do a variant cover and will ask me to contribute. Hey, well, you want to draw this cover? And it's as much him doing me a favor. He's like, it's a chance for me to draw something people have heard of versus what I usually do. Work on unknown projects. So he's doing me a favor. At the same time, I know he wouldn't ask me to do a cover if he didn't think it would, if it wouldn't sell. And then the publisher has to approve the artist. He can't just say, I want my cousin to draw a cover. He's pretty good with crayons. So I want to be self-effacing while also, not playing Sarah McLachlan and staring into the middle distance. Right. I saved the file, reward myself with some coffee. Alright, so we got a belt. The belt doesn't have any decoration on it whatsoever. I don't yet know of a way to add a... Oh, that's not true. I do know of a way to do the thing from the incomplete sentence. Alright, so let's see if we get this to happen. The tube tool, the curve tool, the curve of the tube tool. I'm holding my breath. Adjust the radius here every step along the way. This should let us dovetail these pieces a bit. So I can draw the line around the top of that thing and then extrude basically a tube along the top edge. I can do that along both edges of the belt to create that kind of thing. But I think I need to have a single uniform width across the whole thing. Just bring it down a little bit. But I do need to adjust it somewhat. In a few places I see that the shadow's not quite consistent. Just gotta scooch it out a little bit. A little closer to the edge. Then I'm going to go back to multiple radiuses. Although it thickened up as soon as I did that, right? Alright, I'm going to leave it the single thickness and we're going to suture it in the back. Alright, so I'm going to go here to the Division X. That smooths out the edges. I hit Validate. I hit Save. I hit Solo. I hit Remesh. And then... Wait a minute, before I hit Remesh, I wonder if this will work. Hit the Move tool. Will it only drag that top part and not the bottom part? It will. Huh. I thought since they were all a single object along the whole circle, but it's only moving the... Fantastic. I had no idea. I can tuck this in. Oh, if I click the right thing. Wow, if I click precisely the right thing. So I'm just tucking these pieces into each other. Sweet. And now I can remesh those together. That will fuse them all and they'll act weird like that, but then we'll just smooth them out with the smooth tool. The trouble is the smooth tool will shrink that, it shrinks that pipe down a bit. So it will, like if I set this to maximum and just do this, the whole thing is just going to shrink and shrink and shrink until it narrows. It'll narrow down further and further and further, so we can't do too much of that. So very low intensity and just a quick run over the thing. And even then it's like a little wobbly there at the edge, so I'm going to try to drag it out a bit. And the good news is, by putting the suture back there behind the cape... well, thank you, Dan. That's nice of you to say. Or are you just greeting everyone here in the group? Right back at you. All right. So we do the same thing along the bottom edge. Hold our breath. Try to draw right down the middle. I was worried about that wobble there. That's what I don't want. Okay, increase the post subdivision. Validate. Oh, it's the move tool we want, not the drag tool. The drag tool will move both parts. The move tool will only move the section that's select. Oh, the section that you tap. So to tuck that in, just gotta make sure I grab the right part. Sweet. And so we'll remesh nice and high. Where they overlap, they get weird. Low intensity, smoothing out the area. Man, almost like I know what I'm doing. Alright, I'm going to save. And how we do on time? Oh, we're coming up on 7 o'clock. So we still have the chest armor to do. Got more books to do. Got a big old fluffy cape to do. Made some solid progress today with the legs. I mean, the boots were mostly done, but we didn't have the kneecaps. We didn't have the knee pads. We didn't have the... they didn't have them in position. The shorter calves, all that stuff. The first sculpted loincloth in the stream's history. That's pretty good. Let me save this. And I'm gonna do some. Normally, by this point in the sculpt, this would be version 7. Like we'll save multiple versions along the way. I'm just gonna save this as version 2. And with that, with having a new copy, I can now go through and delete all the hidden things and all the stuff that's all the extra bits that we didn't need that are filling up the document. Including the stuff up here, that extra hand and that extra bit of books. So to match that illustration, the camera angle will probably be closer to that. Let's see if I got perspective going. I can rotate that leg out a bit. I'm going to adjust the pivot. I want it to line up. I want it to be like, again, those bits in the middle have to be perpendicular. Alright, so go back to that front view. Yeah, well, for purposes of the drawing, I can get rid of the disc at the bottom, so I'm not going to worry about that right now. But I'm going to save that edit to the pivot point. At 7 p.m. you have but Dan, I do think something like having the I was thinking about bringing in the for the belt, maybe bring in some of the dice shapes again, like the D20 or the D10s or stuff like that. D20s are easy because it's actually built. They've built it into Nomad Sculpt now. So if you want to add, let me turn off perspective. Get back to saving. If you want to add a D20 to the environment, you can just add, and they have icosahedron as a default shape now. So the wobbly icosahedron. Think about it, these things. They look perfectly geometrically great from one particular angle, and as soon as you rotate them, they're askew, and that frustrates me so much. So you have to look at them dead on, otherwise they're askew. And I don't think I ever noticed that a D20 was askew. Or maybe it's just this program. It's messing up my brain. But I gotta do more armor. I'm really happy with that big fat wrestling belt and lumbar support. I'm very happy with the loincloth, the fur. It's what all the Masters of the Universe are wearing this season. I have to adjust all this fur where we stretched it to fill the extra space when I put the belt in. So I also think it could be a thing where it drags back a little bit, like the momentum of the figure would give it some, I don't know, that seems like more than I want to deal with. I think I'm happier with it being just a fur diaper. No offense to the grognards out there. We don't all wear fur diapers, man. That was my grognard impression. Emmy nomination, please. So if folks want to catch me this Saturday, you should be able to find me over on the Zero Level Media channel over on the Twitch. I believe we have an episode this Saturday, Dan, of Mazes and Muses, where Dan and I talk about creating. Mostly RPG stuff, although Dan's done his share of comics. In the middle of production of a Kickstarter, a crowdfunded book that he did. Oh. Boy, the rain. I'm going to leave this room and I'm going to just turn on the dehumidifier just to make sure that it's not going to ruin all my stuff. The first thing I got when I moved to Florida was a dehumidifier, and it is... I didn't go cheap on it, and I'm glad I didn't, because it has come in so handy. Whew. I feel like that one's a little too prominent. Slim that down a little bit. And then hopefully next week this model will be done. We can color it, bring it into Procreate. I can paint over it. We can do our illustration of a monster, and then this is really like the last piece I need to have the next Kickstarter launched, because I've got artwork for some of the other some clerics. We've got our cover artwork. You can see in the bottom left corner there. We've got, I think, 3 clerics are pretty much finished. I have to do some more modifications of other clerics in the book, because throughout the books I want to have at least a piece of art on every double page spread. I find role-playing game books are boring if it's if there's not a lot of art or charts and things like that. Visual stuff to break up the text. But I still have to create a few magic items. But a lot of that I'm going to produce while the Kickstarter campaign's going. So you'll catch me here working on stuff, and I'll be working on stuff while the campaign is running. I really want it to be something that when the campaign ends, I can just send the PDFs. Titans football is Saturday, Dan, or Sunday? Sunday. Oh yeah, so we'll be streaming on Saturday, right? That Saturday is our new day. Saturday is the day, everyone. You wake up early. You're excited. It's Saturday morning. You got your cartoons. You got your Dan and you got your Steve. You're in your PJs. Got your footsie pajamas, and you get to listen to us. I was gonna say wax nostalgic, wax narcoleptic. Huh? How early in the morning is it? We talk about it on Saturday now. So Saturday, it should be 11 a.m. East Coast time. You'll catch us here. But you're all lovely. It's 7 o'clock. We got 4 people over on, I think, on Twitch. I might be one of those 4. But I count as a person, technically. YouTube, you don't know what I'm talking about here, but we're going to raid. This is what we do. David! You're just in time. Today's stream, we finished sculpting some... Oh, I don't need that icosahedron, do I? Goodbye to you. Whoops. Undo. Goodbye to you. We finished up the legs. I sculpted my first Masters of the Universe style loincloth for this ridiculous character. We sculpted a giant hernia belt for this grognard. Much more to do. We got armor to do. We have a big furry cape to sculpt. But so far so good. Had a nice little turnout here today. Underpelt. You were playing disc golf? Fantastic. That's how you stay youthful. Those activities, those outdoor things I've heard so much about. There's a window here, or at least a high-definition screen, which appears to give me a view of the outdoors, which I've been meaning to investigate. All right, you lovely people. I'm going to see who we can... the next Kickstarter, this is my second time only. Oh, wow. To me, it seems like a lot of fun, apart from chasing the frisbees that you throw too far. Which would be a lot of it. The next Kickstarter, I don't know yet. I don't specifically know when it's going to launch. I'd like it to launch... Ideally, it would have launched by now, but a lot of it was hinging on me getting the death dealing rewards out. I don't want to overlap Kickstarters. But launching next week seems foolhardy, Thanksgiving week. So possibly the next week after that. So like it would be like the 28th or something like that. Something like that. Which means it would wrap up, around the holiday week, which, who knows? It could be a horrible idea, but at least it lets me get this stuff out early next year. By the time I'm delivering rewards next time around, we'll be in the throes of Zine Quest. So it might work out perfectly. And I think this is going to be a much less complicated Kickstarter in that there's no deck of cards. And the deck of cards was what was held up the last campaign. I never did a deck of cards before. They turned out great. I have no complaints for how they turned out. But they took forever to get back to me. And so I had everything shipped except the... I don't know what it was. 220 packages that had cards in them. So... and it just feels not wrong to start a Kickstarter when you haven't even delivered the stuff from the previous campaign. I know some people do that. It's like, but they're like companies. They're not just a dude. I'm just a guy, This is a Safad Bibelbrox. This isn't Hasbro. And if Rocket Ship Entertainment has like, hey, we're going to create a Stan Lee game, or we're going to do a collection of Tom Zoller stuff, or of Boy, why am I drawing a blank on you know, they can have multiple projects running at the same time and something in production while they're running another campaign. But I can't do that. That doesn't seem right. And so far so good. Last I checked, 248 people, 249 people had queued up at Prayer's Handbook to be notified when it launches, which is more than any one I've had so far, I think. It's a weirder campaign. Again, I don't know how many people are going to be interested in playing a metadomain cleric. But I think there's going to be enough fun stuff here that'll be interesting. And I really want to deliver stuff. Like, if the campaign ends, I don't want it to end. I would want it to end like on before the new year. Before the new year, I want it to end, so I can just send people the file before this. So it comes out this year. And that's not just me thinking about that for the Ennies. That's me thinking about it as like, I just want it off my plate and done. And then, who knows? Maybe even send it to the printers before the end of the year. That would be awesome. And then we can start delivering stuff in January. And by the middle of February, everything's out the door, and we launch the Zine Quest one, which will be exciting. Not as exciting as who knows? No, they're all exciting. I love all my children equally. All right, you lovely people. I'm going to go over to Twitch and see who we can raid. Alan Barbeau was lovely enough to bring people in. I think it's quite possible that a few other folks, someone else raided us early on, but the system didn't tell me who. But suddenly having 15, 16 people in the chat or in the audience was surprising to me. All right. As soon as I can get Chrome to launch it, we'll raid somebody. Unless someone knows who we should be raiding. But YouTube folks, you don't understand a word I'm saying when it comes to raiding stuff. What happens is, if you're on the Twitch, we're all here, and instead of just logging off and everyone just, immediately falling into a sulking mood, which is what I would do when a YouTube channel ends, we all go to someone else's Twitch channel and watch what they're up to. Which is really one of the best things about Twitch. And when I basically had to choose between Twitch and YouTube, because Twitch makes you choose, that was kind of the big deciding factor for me, the idea of these raids. And I would raid Alan, but he's in France, so he's always done by the time I'm done. What we got here? Oh, they're in the Let's Go to Goodman Games. I think they have an official Kickstarter going now, if I can get the music to stop yelling at me. All right, let's see how we do this. So we're going to go to Goodman Games Official. All right. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But usually it does. Goodman Games Official. All right, folks. I'll see you all Saturday morning here on Zero Level Media. Or I will see you next Tuesday, and we'll see how far we can get. Maybe we can finish the Grognard. Have a great weekend, and let's go check out Goodman Games.